All right, we are continuing our January 16th meeting. And now we will discuss the State House project update. And we have Agatha Kessler, Sergeant at Arms, and David Sheets, State Curator. Welcome, whichever one of you wants to go first.
Would it be okay if we present this together?
Of course.
Okay.
And we have a new member.
Yeah.
Good.
Great to meet you. Welcome. Yeah.
So we do have a PowerPoint. Thank you, Agatha Kessler, Sergeant at Arms, for the record.
David Sheets, Vermont State Curator, BGS.
And we are here to give I'll call it a brief overview of the State House entryway project. And I say brief because there's actually a team of people that you should be hearing from to answer your questions about HVAC and mechanical rooms and blasting and all of the technical components. We have architects and engineers and project managers working on this. So David and I are prepared to give you the overview and to show you some pictures of what this entryway could look like. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see here. To share this with you.
You have,
Can you see?
yep, it's working.
Okay. And then I'll go to slideshow so you see a better look. So the entryway project is, actually, I'll start from this slide. So this is a project we've been working on for a couple years, and it started in 2023. A special committee was established. The special committee consisted of the Joint Legislative Management Committee and the two chairs of the Institutions Committee. And there was approval in December of 2024 to move forward with the project. That project had a lot of bells and whistles. There's going to be a fire escape for the Senate chamber. There's going to be new improved fire suppression throughout the building. There was going to be a second floor for more space for committee rooms, for better access into the cafeteria, and an entryway. But it became extraordinarily expensive. So in May of 2024, a much more scaled down version of the project was approved, and that is for the entryway that we're about to show you. The design team includes BGS, David Sheets, the state curator, project managers, historic preservation, because this is a national historic landmark, the State House. Freeman French Freeman is the architecture firm that's working on this, and they have done a lot of work in the building, including our HVAC project. We have our consultants, our architectural consultant, Trisha Harper, who works for the Sergeant at Arms office, and then my office has been included. So to give you a little bit of background, that's the State House. This is kind of like a timeline of the State House. So actually, David, would you like to present
sure.
the timeline of the State House?
The original building is the purple color that you see at the bottom of the screen. Classic cruciform plan building with a dome centered over that cruciform. In the 1880s, the first addition popped up, and that's the green wing off to the west. That was built in order to house the Supreme Court and the State Library above. And that has since been renovated in the 1920s to accommodate the House committee rooms where the old library space had been. And what is today the lounge is the restored Supreme Court chamber. Between them is a peach color, and that during the 1960s, that was filled in order to provide the very first elevator that the State House ever had. The current elevator that we still enjoy that comes up to the card room and beyond serves the 30s and the 40s. And then beyond that are a combination of historic buildings that contained mechanical operations for the State House behind it that they built onto in the 1980s to create the state cafeteria and the current mezzanine directly below. And that was where the old cafeteria had been on the mezzanine. And then they built in 1987 the current cafeteria. And all of those spaces are in play, but if you notice the courtyard that is created between the additions, that's the focus of the current expansion, is to fill in the white space to provide this new entryway.
Thank you, David. I love this map because it shows that the State House has been added on to many times or a handful of times, and it is time to do it again. So there have been multiple space reports done on the State House. It has been studied and studied and studied for years. And the findings are that the access to the building, being able to get into the building, is inadequate. If you are a staff or a legislator, you know how to get into the building. You know where all the doors are, the back doors. But if you are not a regular here, it is actually quite intimidating to figure out how to get into the building. And people will approach those large wooden doors and not expect them to open, or they'll try to open it and it's so heavy they think it's locked. People hurt themselves climbing those granite steps and opening those doors. So it's fair to say that it is not easy to get into the building. Another finding of the report is that safety and security screening is inadequate. Actually, when they wrote these reports, safety and security screening did not exist. Even though we're doing it once a week, it is still considered inadequate. There are no underutilized spaces in the building, is a finding of the reports. And what that means is we are using every inch of the building to its maximum capacity. In the House committee rooms, especially, they are very crammed. They're overcrowded. It is quite luxurious to be in the Senate, but we are sharing space. Yesterday, when we were testifying in committee, I was actually sharing a desk with a legislator. That's how small it was. The cafeteria is overcrowded, so we're overcrowded. But this project is about the entryway. So I'll go back. I meant to reorder these slides, but I'll go back to here because this is what the entryway would look like and could look like. And before we talk about what it looks like, just to talk about some of the benefits of an entryway. An entryway allows for climate control. This is true for any building, any entryway. And moisture is a major problem in this building. We spend a lot of money controlling the moisture in the building, and an entryway would give us a more organized way. Instead of having 5 entrances with 5 climate control areas, we could have the one. Entryways offer a place for wayfinding. People immediately upon entrance can locate the elevators, the restrooms. There's directories. They can talk to somebody. It's a much more welcoming and accessible way to enter a building. And then visitor services. If you want to talk about that, David.
So visitor services would be served by this new proposed lobby that projects from the historic building. You can see the 1886 wing off to the right with the fire escape. This is being built in with the possibility at some future time of doing what might be necessary to get rid of that fire escape. There could be fire egress that would not be quite that way. But for now, we must have that fire escape. And that's not part of the current project. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Can you orient me
Yes.
to
Where
where?
we are. Let
On
me
the
go
west
back
side.
to this.
Yeah.
That's the back
So-
door, the back door where the screening is, right?
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the projection is right
Thank you,
there,
Madam Chair.
right where that curve is in the circle,
Okay.
the oval.
And we
And it would project out enough that people could actually see it. I think part of our issue here is ADA access for this building is incredibly woeful. And of all the buildings in Vermont, to not be accessible, the people's house, that's a major driver of this. And during the pandemic, when we reopened slowly and only used the rear entrances, that's when we realized that the wayfinding was woeful as well, meaning you can put up plenty of signage, but they still won't know where they're going to find the lobby, to find the ways to find your way around the building. So visitor services, our school groups during this time of the year were the most heavily visited school site in Vermont by far. We're proud of it, but we do need some resources to help them along with you. Tourists would be, our traditional tourist season is June to the end of October. Happily, that does not coincide with the session. And we hope to still use the usual traditional entrances for that season, because frankly, the building will not be full of what I call important people that might be the reason security needs to be enhanced in particular. So we would still use those entrances during that season. But ceremonies and outside groups, and even during the tourist season, the need to go through that single point of entry is still something that we would be doing on an as needed basis.
Mhm.
So this will welcome people, but it also identifies itself as something inspired by the dome, by the way. The curve is kind of French Freeman took that inspiration from the drum of the dome. And it's very easy to identify it as the new thing. And an entryway, because it has to scream out to people far away, this is where we go to enter the building.
Mhm. And we have some more pictures that will show like a bird's eye view that will give you more of an idea of the orientation. So yes,
So I assume some of the landscaping that's over on that area will have to.
Very much so.
yes.
Very much so. The whole way that people approach it from Baldwin and Aiken Avenues, totally.
And I guess I had one other question. I shouldn't go into design because it's just,
It's fun though.
but it's my thing. The loading dock area,
Yeah.
it has disappeared. I didn't see on the plans where that got replaced.
It'll be in a future
Slide.
picture, but I'm glad you bring up the loading dock because I actually wanted to touch on the hazards of our current loading dock. That is our accessible entrance, the loading dock. And that's also where we get all of our deliveries. It's also where it is our single point of entry on the day that we activate enhanced security. And it is where large, dangerous icicles form in the winter. And the icicles, I feel a little ridiculous talking about icicles because they're majestic icicles, but the icicles that form over the loading dock, they're actually dangerous to the point where BGS comes and they remove them periodically. They have to come in with a lift. They go up there, they remove them. When you see them this winter forming, you'll know they are like stalactites. And so that loading dock is where we are funneling all of our people for single point of entry, all of our people who have mobility issues. That's where our deliveries are getting. And that's our entrance to the state house, is a hazardous loading dock. The last thing about the entryway, and in my opinion, in my role as Sergeant at Arms, one of the most important is security. This entryway gives us the appropriate space to have a security program. Without it, we do not have appropriate space, respectful space, efficient space to do it. We can do it, but it is not, it's not a good program. There's not appropriate space. So let's go look at some pictures. So this is the floor plan, and we don't want to confuse things, which we're actually going to show you two versions of the same thing. So this is what we'll call baseline, and it is $18.6 million. This gives you, to orient you, this is the front of the State House here, portico, and we are here. This is the back, and this would be the new entryway here. And notice now it's no longer a courtyard, it's a corridor. So entering, you would get a clear shot. Once you enter here, you can see all the way through to the other side of the property. The glass staircase that's here would go away. That glass staircase that goes up, that would go away. So upon entering, you would come through, go through screening in an appropriate appropriate size space, come through. There'd be a reception desk here, which is an extraordinary feature to be able to walk in and see somebody and know I should go talk to that person. I will say this will change staffing models. We'll have to hire security guards. We'll have to hire, front desk receptionist. You can take a left, and to orient you, this is where the single-use restroom is. That's right now in the service elevator. You take a left, it would still pretty much look like that. Your elevator would be right here. There'd be a brand new staircase, completely brand new reconfigured staircase there, same location, but new staircase. And so immediately upon entering, people who need an elevator will find an elevator. You keep walking down, to your left will be a coat room. You keep walking down, all interior space, and now people will enter the State House through the Lincoln hallway. For legislators, staff, for people who need shortcuts, you can still come in and take a quick right where the copy room is. So we won't be losing any hallways. We'll just be gaining this corridor to the Lincoln Hall. But I want to show you the next slide, because this is actually the one that I think is more relevant to what we need, and also more expensive. You can add $1 to $3 million. It doesn't change many of the walls, but what it does is it changes the programming, and it is reutilizing existing space. So I'll start with this area. This area where the single-use restroom is incredibly small. Have you been in that area where the service elevator is and the vending machines? It's extraordinarily small. That will now become basically a main lobby for the State House. So the proposal is to remove the single-use restroom and remove the lactation room to open up this lobby. Then, since we're removing a restroom, we have to replace it. So we can use the copy room, which we have plans. There's an interest in moving this copy room, period, regardless from the project. This copy room is ideal space for a restroom. It's interior space. There's no windows. We can put 2 restrooms here with a lactation room and a water filling station. So, which is ideal for an entryway when you first come in to have a restroom available to you as soon as you enter. Then on the left side, we can create a space where IT currently is. We can create a little space for students when they show up for their tour groups. That would be a multi-purpose space, but one of the spaces could be tour groups. They can drop their backpacks there. They can drop their lunch boxes and their coats there. We really don't have space for them to do that now. Our coat room is at maximum capacity every day. And so when those tour groups come, they kind of have to find a place to put their stuff. And oftentimes their stuff ends up in front of a doorway or blocking a walkway. So we need a better plan for that. We relocate the copy room here, which is old drafting operations, and relocate IT here. So this, depending on what we pick and choose from here, it'd be an additional $1 to $3 million to do those things. In terms of deliveries, they would still be coming in through the west side. So this is north, east, south, west. They'd still be coming in through the west side, but through their own separate entrance. They would not be sharing the same door as the public. They'd now be coming, right now when we get our dollies full of Coca-Cola and chips, they're using the same door as the people who are coming in wheelchairs and walkers. Now they'll have their own separate entrance and they can come in right to the service elevator. And Capitol Police would be relocated right to the entryway. So now they have their eyes on the parking lots, on everyone coming into the building and everybody that's in the screening area, including a little room where they can peel off with somebody if they need to. So that's the bird's eye view. We have a few more images, but any questions about this? Okay. Anything you'd add, David?
No, except to add that, so you enter in the rear, you go down from the reception desk through the bridge overhead atrium, and the east vestibule that you see there is the enclosure behind Lincoln. So the doors that are behind the Lincoln bust would be kept open. So people would be coming from that direction and immediately entering the main lobby. Much easier than as you find your way from our two accessible entrances, both east and west. The east doors that you see there are only badged access. So that's where staff coming from the parking areas on the east side would still be able to come into the State House. But the west side is the public. And that always has been the case in the winter, in particular, when visitors are not coming directly up, the steps to the front door. The west is the only entrance that makes sense. It always has been that way, which is why deliveries have to be in that same area for the exact same reason that we have so much parking on the east side that can't be public access in a major way.
Mm-hmm.
So just a question about the atrium area. So, those rooms now have windows out. So I think you were going to try to make that area still light
Yes.
as much as possible.
As much as possible, yeah.
The architects are researching and designing skylights, as many skylights as possible. And that is at the demanding of the state curator. Great.
And historic preservation, Laura Trishman happily has been working with us from the outset. She'll be guiding this through the National Historic Landmark review process to make sure that this is done the way they feel it needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Are we getting grants for any of this?
Not for the construction. All of the design has been through a grant. So we haven't spent any state funds. And that actually, to put this conversation into context, why we're here. The reason we're here, this is the first time we presented in Corrections House yesterday. We have not had to come to the legislature for approval for any money yet because it's all been through an ARPA grant. But this is the year that there's a request in the capital bill, whether it's in there or not, I don't know, but this is the first time that we'll need state funds to continue the project.
Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I just assume that then all the other doors will
Yeah.
be either badge operated or exit only.
Correct.
Precisely.
During the session,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yes.
So this is essentially the street view. And what this shows is what David said, to David's point, is you want to be able to see the entryway from the street, from a distance, so that people visiting can say, that's how I get into the building. And you want it to look new and different. We saw lots of designs that replicated the 1859 architecture, designs that were very futuristic. And as a group, we all were drawn to the one that was inspired by the drum of the dome. This is the street view. And this is the east side view, where you can see the archway. If you walk into the glass enclosure right there, to your left would be the Lincoln hallway. The doors would be open. To your right would be badge access, back door to the coffee room and the IT room. And directly in front of you would be that atrium with access to the coat room.
So to get through the glass doors, you would need a badge.
Exactly. So this should not interrupt how any legislators or staff are getting into the building.
It's great.
And this is a rendering of what it would look like from the east side. So in terms of this project and where we're at, we are past schematic design. That's the first phase of the project. We are in design development where we're refining. That's why you kind of saw two versions of the same floor plan, because we're refining. We're figuring out what do we need. We're talking to stakeholders, which includes staff, which include members of the public, which include historic preservation, which include as many people as we can possibly include, because we want to do this project right. And that is our stakeholder engagement process. And in the FY27 budget, which you'll be reviewing this legislative session, we do have a funding request that would get us from design into actual construction. In terms of timeline, if you work backwards, I'll work backwards on this. If everything goes according to plan, which I'm told always happens, we could have our doors open by the 2030 session. So working back from that, we would finish our design work by next spring, May of 2027. Design work and pre-construction documents, which means we would be engaging with a project manager construction company. We could begin construction as early as the spring or summer of 2027. And with a approximate 21 month construction cycle, that would bring us to the 2030 session. And that is the project. And that is the nutshell of the project.
So are you going to do this as a construction manager type approach, or are you gonna do typical design bid build?
I don't know that we have the answer to that. That would be a question when you bring in the team, the BGS team. We've discussed it different ways.
Sure.
I think what I've heard is construction management,
We'll give you better pricing as you go through the
Mhm.
design,
Mhm.
but I don't want to misspeak for BGS. They're the project leads on it.
Just
So,
curious.
yeah.
Okay.
But you're quite right to look at, I think, we have to keep an open mind, I think, for many of the many questions swirling around this at this point, because there's the challenge of doing this in the off season only, right? So it's how many years will it take to do this within the time frame that works with also making sure the legislature is meeting here. And we're used to that here because the State House itself went through a restoration that took over a decade because of that. If it had been done in one big, swoop, that would have been one thing, but this building can't operate unless we do it in bite-sized chunks. So figuring that out, in addition to what is the best model to ensure that we start again, stop again, start again, and so on, and yet get it done as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. And some of those projects like the restroom, the coat room, those could be done ahead of time. They call them enabling projects. Like you could build that restroom in advance of the rest of the construction. But it's it's a sequencing.
It's a good idea.
Mhm.
Never have too many restrooms.
Yeah.
Challenges like this.
Oh, of course, yeah. So this is great. I just want to ask you, and we'll talk to BGS about it, but I am happy just as a resident of this building with the HVAC project, and I noticed it's not as cold as it was, and we actually have a thermostat that has numbers on it, and I think the numbers are relevant, right? So we can actually change our
Yes.
I mean, we haven't needed to. We've all been pretty happy, or at least I haven't heard anything.
Mhm.
We had senators who brought blankets typically,
Yeah.
and I don't think they're using their blankets this year. And so to me, it's working well, and I want to talk to other folks about that. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
check with you two that you think it's gone well also.
the team is very professional and working very hard. And you are having the desired experience in your Senate committee rooms. The Senate chamber can get very cold. So we're still working on that. They're still working on
Oh, it's not-
figuring that out.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we're not finished,
Okay,
but part of that has to do with decisions around this
That's right.
project.
okay,
So this project will directly affect the HVAC. And that's one of the reasons this year we need to make the commitment to this if we're gonna do it, because it will affect the outcome of completing the HVAC project.
okay. That's
And
really
you'll-
good to know.
You'll hear more about that from Joe and BGS.
Okay,
to answer your question, your thermostat is effective for a couple degrees,
okay.
one way or the other.
So we have a range.
You have a
That's actually
range.
really smart to just give us a range.
Yes. And it is an absolute miracle that this old building, this old girl operates the way she does, because it is a historic building that has all of the modern features and amenities that you would find if you walk into any, business,
Mhm.
with our lights and our accent lights and our monitors and our restrooms and our air conditioning, our heating. It is a lot of credit goes to BGS for keeping the
Mhm.
building looking the way it does, just like it did in 1859, but without needing to wear mittens,
Yeah,
or
or have
it
a
is
pole.
exactly. They do a beautiful job.
Yeah, yeah. And the sidewalks, the heated sidewalks.
Yes.
That's really,
Sidewalk.
it's really nice to not have ice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Are there any questions about the project? No? Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you
Yeah,
very
appreciate
much for having us.
On short notice too.
No,
It's
that's
all right.
great. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, so let's go offline. We'll have a 10-minute break.